Apple continues to amaze me with their original content, so when something new comes from them, I perk up in anticipation of it being fun. Echo 3 is a new action drama that puts two highly trained soldiers on a trek to save a family member who's being held hostage. The first three episodes are dropping at once, so is this a series that's even worth starting? When Amber Chesborough, a brilliant young scientist who is the emotional heart of her small American family, goes missing along the Colombia-Venezuela border, her brother Bambi and her husband Prince, two men with deep military experience and complicated pasts, struggle to find her in a layered personal drama set against the explosive backdrop of a secret war. The show starts off with some tense action and then jumps back a bit in time to catch us up to that moment. This stars Michiel Huisman, Luke Evans, and Jessica Ann Collins, and it's a pretty engaging story. Huisman is Prince, who's married to Collins as Amber, and then Evans is Bambi, Amber's brother. Now, the dynamic between the three is tense, conflicted, even explosive at times, but then it's also a very well-oiled machine that can spring into action and wreak some havoc. Now, the crux of the story is that Amber is a researcher who's in the mountains of Colombia examining plant life in tribal ways just to see if there's a way to break addictions. Now, she and her team are captured by rebels who seemingly have no known political affiliation, and then when the US government isn't acting fast enough to rescue Amber, Prince, and Bambi, they travel to get the job done. While this isn't a non-stop action show, when there is action, it's tense and engaging. And I love the restraint that Prince and Bambi use when they're in gunfights. They shoot sparingly, but with dead aim. And then that allows for some stealthy maneuvers. But what makes this even more exciting is where they're at while carrying out some of these tasks. The locale of the rougher parts of the Colombian town make for the perfect sketchy backdrop, where bad things happen and nobody really bats an eye. I mean, it's almost eerie to watch some gunfights break out and there be zero reaction from the locals. There's a lot of political back and forth within the story, and this angle helps to pull us into the Colombian side of what's going on. Now, we see tensions and motivations come into play, but also how things are exacerbated on both sides by certain actions or even inaction. Now, while we do get some relative development on both Prince and Bambi, I still feel like they're relative strangers to us. We can get a sense of who they are and what some of their shortcomings and strengths are, but how those came about have yet to be revealed, and I think some of them will be very important to understand. Now, one aspect of Bambi's personality is very understandable just due to familiar interactions, and I like how that plays a part within his character. I think it's even going to have a larger impact later on. So part 1 of the story encompasses the first 3 episodes, but the series is going to run through January 13th of 2023, so there will certainly be more parts to this overall arc. Now, the locations are great to watch, especially because we don't just experience action in the mountains between Colombia and Venezuela. In a flashback, we get to see some military exploits with Prince and Bambi, and that's a harrowing, intense situation on this snow-covered mountain in a place that looks like it's in Central Asia. But there are also spots we're shown in the metropolitan areas of Colombia where there's a lot of wealth and power. Now, the settings are all captured really well, and they look either inviting or intimidating depending on where they're at. The pace of the show is fairly driving, but it's not super quick. There's a fair amount of patient drama that takes place, especially as characters work the systems of government and their contacts, involving tense discussions and sometimes even veiled threats. Now, so far, I'm really engaged in the series, and I like where it's headed. I'm not sure how the rest of the 7 episodes are going to play out, or if the story can maintain its edge and the tension. But for a premiere, I'm glad they've dropped 3 episodes, because I really think it can work to get you hooked on the characters and then the show. And I think it also helps that both Huisman and Evans are charismatic, and they create good conflict between their two characters. There's a level of tension between them that is both intriguing and frustrating, but that makes their arcs even more engaging. And if you enjoy action dramas that also have a military angle to them and then political schemings, you might want to check out Echo 3. The first 3 episodes drop together on Wednesday, November 23rd, and then there will be 1 episode each week on Fridays until January 13th. Now, overall, this is a strong start to the series with charismatic and strong leads. The story is engaging with some complex and political intrigue. And while there is still a ton of room for characters to be more developed, this beginning introduces complexities and flaws that make for a very watchable cast. There's sex, maybe some brief nudity, a lot of profanity, and a ton of violence. Now, I'm not going to give this a rating just yet since I've only watched the first 3 episodes, but if the show can maintain the momentum that it's begun, this is a very worthwhile show to check out. So, what are some action thrillers that you enjoy? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.